everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar, Integrating Direct Mail into Your Omnichannel Campaign. Today, we're going to be discussing all things direct mail and specifically how to use mail as part of your modern omnichannel strategy. So this is the first of 3 webinars that we're presenting as part of our Modern Marketers Best Practices series. So if you haven't already signed up for the other 2 webinars, please do so at lob.com/events. So, quick introductions. I'm Julie Ginn, the VP of Demand Gen at Lob. I have over 25 years of experience in B2B marketing. Most of it is in running multi-channel and omnichannel campaigns. I actually started my career way back when by doing a lot of standalone direct mail campaigns. I then took a hard turn towards digital marketing, much like a lot of the people in the room, I'm assuming. And now I'm leading our Demand Gen here at Lob, and I've returned to an omnichannel approach that uses direct mail. So my good friend and partner in crime today is Ray Van Eiderson. He oversees the marketing strategy with the U.S. Postal Service. Ray, would you please give us a quick overview of your background and your experience?
Sure. Thanks very much, Julie. I started off as a strategy consultant looking at, marketing strategy of all things. And, I've been at the Postal Service for about the last 15 years, looking at marketing strategy. What I tend to be looking at the moment are what are the trends going on in the advertising space? What are we seeing in MarTech and AdTech? Where is the growth? And really what's been exciting over the last number of years is we're seeing the growth of direct mail tech, companies such as Lob that are making it as easy to integrate direct mail into omni-channel campaigns as your digital channels. And so really excited to be able to talk about that topic today.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Ray. We're very grateful you are here. Let's just do a jump in and take a look at what we're going to be covering. Ray is going to start us out by talking about this brave new world of omnichannel marketing in 2022 and why specifically direct mail has become more important than ever. Then we're going to walk through some very practical steps you need for campaign integration. So this is going to include data, research, and all of the technology you need. And then we're going to end with a fun section we call Steal This Idea. We're going to show you about 3 or 4 examples of phenomenal direct mail marketing that we think will make you smile and get your creative juices flowing. So thank you for coming along for the ride today. I'm going to hand it over to you, Ray.
Thanks. So, today we have this brave new world of omnichannel marketing. And I think it's interesting, for those of us who've been around, for a few years, just sort of looking at how marketing has changed in like the last 10 years. If you go 10 years ago, they still called it multi-channel marketing. And that was because although there were lots of channels that people were starting to be doing, your TV and your digital and your out of home and your radio and your direct mail, they kind of looked a little bit different because they were all done in silos by different people. The coordination really wasn't there at the moment. And I'm going to say 5 years ago, as ad tech and MarTech started to take off, they were really kind of taking off only in the digital channels. And so you were having the beginning of omni-channel campaigns with integration across your digital channels, but really it was only that. Your TV looked different, your out of home probably looked different, your direct mail looked different. And now with, the Lumascape has 8,000 apps, 8,000 apps. Direct mail tech is really becoming a key player there as well. And so you're able to manage all of your channels at once, and that means that, your digital asset management tool has assets that you can, you have a picture that you use in your email, that you use in your display ads, that you use in your direct mail, and it's just all one picture that you can use it. You're using the same call to action everywhere. Your targeting is the same. You come up with a list, an audience that you want to be going with, and you upload that into Facebook, and it finds some lookalike audiences. So it's exactly the same people who are there. You have customer journeys for figuring out how to get the right message to the right audience at the right time. And it may be that you send an email first, and if they don't open that, then you send a direct mail piece. But you have that journey map just matching everything all the way through. And then lastly, in terms of measurement, the tech that you've built up for measuring your digital channels is being able to be used for other channels as well. Out of home is becoming more measurable. Direct mail using the same kind of UTM codes and Google Analytics for measuring everything. So we're all in this integrated place. And so the question then becomes, okay, now that all this exists, what channels are the right ones. And the other change that's happened really in that last 10-year period is that 10 years ago, I went back and looked, and digital was about 25% of ad spend. Today, it's up to 70%. And that really makes a fundamental change because, 10 years ago, when you had, out of home, you had radio, you had TV. Each one of these channels was a little bit different. They appealed to different audiences. They, were used at different times in the funnel. We still called it a funnel back then. But today, with digital being 70%, most digital channels are looking pretty similar to each other. And so you end up with a surplus of low cost per impression, low response rate channels, and you don't have the ability to have somebody who's closing or is going to appeal to people who are interested in tactile or other aspects. And so really what direct mail has the opportunity to do is to act as a counterpoint. To step in and, yes, it costs more per impression, but the reason that it has the highest ROI of all of the channels, according to the ANA, and according to Lob's latest research, is because that response rate is that much higher. So if we look at, what are the fundamental aspects about direct mail that make it as successful as it is, we say that, direct mail pieces, if they get open and if you're interested in, they will stay on your coffee table for 17 days. If you're looking at that catalog, if you're looking at that Christmas lookbook, it's there. You can interact with it at the time that makes the most sense to you. Second piece that we're seeing is that as direct mail is getting integrated into some of these digital campaigns, into the omnichannel, that direct mail that's automated direct mail, so that's plugging into your marketing automation platforms, your Marketos, your Adobes of the world, that's being used for direct mail retargeting. All of that grew 52% last year. So there's a real tremendous momentum behind integrating direct mail into all of these things. And then lastly, we're looking at kind of the impact that you get. And this is one of these classic examples where 1 + 1 is equaling 3, where if you take your peanut butter and your chocolate, you get your Reese's peanut butter cups that are better than either one combined. We're seeing response rates of 27%. I talked to a number of vendors, they're adding the one and the other getting 30% lift. And the research on it is saying that 84% of players of marketers are seeing a lift in response rate and in ROI by adding in direct mail into multi-channel campaigns. So everything is really, working together to be particularly effective.
So Ray, my main takeaway from everything you just said is that direct mail is just an incredibly important and impactful part of doing omnichannel marketing. And basically, if you're not using mail at this point to connect with your audiences, you're really missing out. However, I know, and there are some serious obstacles to integrating direct mail. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges people have right now?
The last time that I did a poll on this subject, I found that there were kind of 3 different areas that people were most concerned about. One of which was measurement, one of which was budget, and one of which was not having the right tools. So let me talk about each one of those individually. Measurement, I kind of laugh at when people are talking about, the challenge of measuring with direct mail, because, going back, decades, direct mail was the original channel where there could be measurement. People had coupon codes that you could put in. And there's other classic things like matchbacks. One of the great things about direct mail is that, today, most purchases, if you have e-commerce, you know where you shipped it. If you're selling a financial services policy, you know the address that you're dealing with. And so you can look at the addresses that you mailed to, and you look at the addresses that your customers signed up for, and you can match those back, and you can very easily know what percentage of the people that you sent out a mail piece to made a purchase in the next 30 days or so. So it's really easy to do. And then, for all of you who were born in the digital channels and you're used to Google Analytics and you're used to UTM codes, that's another area that direct mail is able to work with very well. You can have a vanity URL for your campaign, retail.com/summer sale. And everybody knows that anybody who went to /summer sale is going to show up with a UTM code. And we know that we only use that for the direct mail piece, so it's easy to tell. You can even go one step further and have retail.com/Ray Van Iterson, and then you know exactly who it was. And with the tremendous growth of QR codes that people have seen over the last couple of years, you can even link a QR code to Ray Van Iterson to retail.com/Ray Van Iterson, and just do that without even having to type anything in. So on the measurement side, the ad tech and the MarTech is there to make it just as easy as digital. The second thing people were talking about was not having the tools. And I guess we'll touch on that a little bit more when Julie's talking. But if you are a small business that doesn't have a tech stack that has 10 or 20 different aspects, there are standalone tools. You can use Lob by itself. There are other companies out there, and it feels just like doing a Facebook ad. You upload your creative, you identify who the audience, you insert your credit card, you hit a button, and it flies. So it's fairly straightforward to do. And then I think the last piece was how do you integrate with other things? And again, the marketing automation platforms, the CRMs, they can plug into companies like Lob, their tools, in order to just trigger that at the right time. So those are what I've heard. And now I know that Julie had 4 different areas that she'd identified as some of the additional challenges as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ray. So, now that we understand the value of mail, right, and we know that it's worth it, let's shift gears here for a minute and talk about how you make the dream a reality. Because it does take research, right? It takes data, it takes intelligence, and it takes really good planning to use mail to the best way possible. So let's start with the most obvious step, right? You need to build a database of addresses that you can mail to. And with our hybrid workforce, here to stay, ideally you have both work and home addresses. In my experience, work addresses are pretty easy to get through Zoom Info or other data providers, but getting home addresses has been really tricky for us. I mean, it's taken a lot of elbow grease. What we're doing right now is we're integrating the ask at the bottom of our nurture emails. So we just have a little CTA that says, do you want to see Lob in action? Send yourself a postcard now. We drop them off on a landing page and we're able to collect their home addresses. So we have this process of always be asking, right? But Ray, do you have any advice on folks who are just starting the process of collecting addresses?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's a couple of different things to talk about. I think, Julie, you were talking primarily about the B2B world. And one of the nice things that's happened as a result of COVID is that there are data companies out there that have data about business in people and about consumers, and a number of them have combined their databases and now built the links so that if you know that Joe Smith is the vice president of marketing at XYZ Corporation, they can probably give you, maybe 20, maybe 40% match rate and no home addresses for them. So there's that opportunity as well. Then another thing that can be done for both consumer and businesses is, with our friends on the digital marketing side that are doing location-based advertising, where they know exactly where your cell phone sleeps at night, and they use that for some of their matching and their identity graphs. Because they know where your cell phone sleeps at night, you can match that lat long to a postal address. And so if you reach out to any of them, they'll be able to tell you, if you know that this person's cell number, or ways that they can map in through the identity graphs, you can get an address that way. Or if you're going on the consumer side, in many cases, people have email addresses. And again, if you go to any of the big data players, they're going to get you somewhere between 40 to 70% match rate and be able to give you a postal address for anybody that you have an email address. So if you're already an active digital marketer, you should be able to find postal addresses really easily.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I'd recommend, no matter what you use for your data source, whether you buy it or you build it, it is always worthwhile to go through the extra step of verifying the addresses. We are lucky here. Lob has built-in functionality to do that, but there's many ways, right, that you can verify addresses. What you really want to avoid is sending a postcard and having it bounce back, right? That's not the responsible, sustainable thing to do, and that's why we always verify the addresses. Let's move on to the next step, and that's Basically you've got to build out your buyer's journey. And there is no shortcutting that at all, right? It takes research. So once you have an understanding of how your audience moves between the real and digital world, that's when you can pinpoint how and where you want to integrate mail as a touch point. But I'll tell you, a big part of this is also going to be timing. Timing is critical because when you land in the people's mailboxes at the right time, it produces amazing results. So I'm going to walk through a recent example where this was done really well. This was a retargeting campaign, but I'll tell you, it happened to me just in the last couple of weeks. So I've been shopping for a new pair of shoes. I started by searching online like most people do, right? And before long, all of these ads were popping up. I saw the ads, but guess what? I didn't click on them. I am tired of clicking on ads just like a lot of other people. Digital fatigue is real. And then about a week later, I got an email from the company and I ignored that too. So in fact, I completely forgot about the purchase. I closed my laptop and I walked away. Then about a week later, something magical happened and I got a postcard in the mail. And it was personalized and it had a picture of the actual shoes that I wanted and it included a 15% discount. And guess what? I bought the shoes. And just like Ray mentioned earlier, that postcard sat around for a week on my coffee table until I got to payday. And then I went, bingo, I'm going to go buy these shoes. And that is the power of direct mail, but also of really understanding the buyer's journeys, right? They waited until I went dark and then they used direct mail to reel me back in. I was just very impressed by that. Ray, have you seen the other companies using a similar approach to retarget?
Yeah, so direct mail retargeting has really exploded in the last number of years, and I think it's kind of becomes a similar issue what we were talking about. People go blind to display ad retargeting. You see them, you ignore them. They last way too long, and they become a little bit annoying. You start they almost become a punchline. But with direct mail retargeting, people are seeing that again the response rates are significantly higher. And you only have so many people who come to your website every day. And if you want to use a vehicle that'll get you 1% or less than that, you're throwing away 99% of those people. So being able to use a vehicle that has a higher response rate, things tend to work pretty well. And I think that one of the questions people always come up with is sort of this creep factor. Do you want something coming out of the woodwork? And I've had a number of conversations with retargeting companies about it. They're saying, you probably don't need to have exactly the green sweater that you were looking at. You just have a 15% off sweaters or 15% off all women's wear, and they'll say, "Oh, great!" and they'll buy the green sweater. They know which sweater they want, so you can be fairly just general about it. And the nice thing about it is that people don't associate direct mail with the same cringe of some of the digital side. So receiving a catalog, receiving a postcard, most consumers don't yet make that connection. Couple other things on on this whole idea about understanding your customer and personalization. Just wanted to add, because direct mail has been around so long, and the whole industry of information at the household level, is really well defined. So you can find out, at 123 Main Street, is that an urban striver or is that a soccer mom? So that information is all about that. There's lots of information about household income. There's lots of information about other things that you can tap into, and that really allows you to have a much richer environment, so much richer data, so you can have really great lookalike models that you can tap into there. Then the next thing, you were talking about, this personalization. And, one of the other great things about direct mail that's happened over the last decade or two is that, if you went back far enough, everything was printed on what they call offset printing. I'm going to say, printing that goes back, hundreds of years. So what I got was the same as what you got, was the same as what my mother-in-law got. It was all exactly the same. There was no personalization. Now, a lot, I'm going to say the vast majority of direct mail is being generated on digital presses that print almost as fast as the offset ones, but you can personalize. You can have the name and the salutation, "Dear Ray." You can recognize the fact that I'm into hockey as opposed to into soccer, and so you can have text that that reflects that and that speaks to exactly me, or that speaks to the fact that the last thing that I bought, and that can be done just as easily in mail as it is in digital, because it's all being powered just by the same mail merge kind of technology. And lastly, you can have a different image for me than for somebody else. So it's really a completely personalized image. And it's really amazing when you go to a printing press, you will see that there's 5 different offers side by side on this big piece of paper, and they're all completely different, but they're all going out that day. So personalization can do things, and that also can drive testing. I know that you ask Lob about some of their examples of people who are running tests, thousands of different variations, because they're able to personalize and automate and customize all of this stuff.
Right, that actually brings us to our last point. And I mean, it's no surprise. We're always going to recommend that people use software to automate this whole process. But I think a lot of people until today maybe thought that direct mail marketing hasn't really kept up with the digital channels. And I'm hoping now that people know that's not true. But I'll be honest, right? Before I came to Lob, I wasn't using direct mail for demand gen because I really thought we were still at the part where we print 10,000 postcards and send them off. So do you think most people know there are options beyond batch printing?
Yeah, I think that, what's incredible is that, again, there's been this shift from, mass production of direct mail to really customized, so drip campaigns have become the new norm. It's a small percentage, but as I was mentioning earlier, it's growing at 50% a year. And so what you can do is you can identify, these are the 100, 500,000 people who it's right to send a message out today, and we can print those in low volume and get those out to people, and by printing them in some cases spread across the country so that they're close, we can get those in people's mailboxes in 48, 72 hours. And so you're able to get timely messages tailored to people's interests that really fit in. And so everything's faster. You can do the testing, you can do the personalization, and it just feels like all of the flexibility benefits that you have within other digital channels are now within digital direct mail.
Let me share how we eat our own dog food here at Lob. This is our marketing tech stack, and as you can see, we use 40 different channels just for omnichannel marketing. And for us, we've integrated Lob with our Marketo and Salesforce instance. And that works really well for us because one of the use cases we like to do is trigger mail based on actions. Like, for example, if somebody comes to our pricing page on our website and doesn't convert. So, I think that for people who have similar tech stacks, right, robust stacks like we do, then all you have to do is add one more tool to your tool belt and you can start doing direct mail automation. But what about for smaller companies, right? What would you recommend?
Yeah, as I was mentioning earlier, if you're really big and you've got all of these types, like you plug it into your CRM, your marketing automation platform, and you're golden. But if you're smaller, there are standalone tools. You can, just search on the web for, direct mail online, and there's a bunch of standalone tools. There are other ones that are, there's some are connected into Lob. There are some others that are more of a standalone, connected to other marketing automation platforms, but they're really designed for people who are at smaller volumes. And again, it's kind of just like you were doing a Facebook campaign. It's upload your creative or work with their templates. It's select who your audience is, what you type in your CTA, provide your credit card, and go. And again, they can track your mail as it's going out and let you know when it's going to be delivered. And if you're, many of them will integrate QR codes and pearls or vanity phone numbers, and they can track the response rates that you're getting. So at the end of the day, you're going to get that same reporting, but it's just all standalone, straightforward for sending direct mail.
Yeah, and I know we certainly have companies that are a lot smaller that have far few technologies in place, and they still use Lob as a standalone product. And it's a good solution for them as well. Okay, great. So I'm going to do. Let's move on to our next section, and this is our show and tell portion, as I mentioned from the very beginning. So Ray and I are going to share 4 examples of really stellar campaigns that use direct mail for brand awareness, customer acquisition, upsell, and also retention. So some of these examples are integrated into a larger omnichannel approach, and others are just brilliant ways of using direct mail. And so we wanted to share those as well. And let's go into our first example. And this is a campaign that is near and dear to my heart. This is Lob's Change the Channel to Lob campaign that we just launched. The concept behind this campaign is that the 1980s were absolutely great in a lot of ways, but not so much for direct mail marketing. So it's time to step into the future with Lob. So as you can see, this is a very creative campaign for us, and we wanted to go big. So we built an entire ecosystem of communication touch points. So on the digital side, we've got this personalized URL, email, and we started LinkedIn ads because we know that our target audience is on that platform. And then in real life, we've integrated 2 touch points. So a postcard and a custom Rubik's Cube that has a QR code that leads back to this microsite. And then in the Rubik's Cube packaging, we also included a handwritten note for folks. So this is a campaign that I'm very proud of, obviously. And the big idea to steal from here is that it is absolutely worth it to double down on the mailbox. And when you can connect your direct mail with your gifting strategy, you're going to even see a better return on your whole campaign. Ray, I'll hand it to you for the next example.
Perfect. And, and I love the example that you gave, Julie, because, it's really, once you've identified the people that you want to be going after, you don't want to be wasting those hand raisers, because that's where your big opportunity is. And I love, all the different channels that you had built out. Another company that looked at multi-channel, omni-channel, was one of the leading meal delivery services. And they ran into the issues that was almost stereotypical. We all know that when you're working with digital, it works great at the beginning. You identify an audience you want to go after. You're able, you have a small response rate, but there's a large number of them, so you're able to get some growth, and everything's good. And then, as you get a little bit larger and you're trying to grow faster, you have to expand your audience even more so. And unfortunately, eventually they're not quite as targeted as they used to be, because you're going for scale and you've got the low response rates. And this company ran into the same issue. They ran into that fatigue. They ran into that digital wall that we all are familiar with. And so what they wanted to do was to add in direct mail. And so what I want to tell you a little bit is about kind of the way that they did it and kind of the different learnings that they had. The first step was just really to add in direct mail in a not particularly strategic manner. They added it to the mix. It was an omni-channel campaign. It worked reasonably well, but they were able to increase their revenue growth by 67%, because they were taking, it was a meal delivery is a fairly competitive area. No one really pays any attention to display ads about meal delivery, because there's another 10 other companies that they can use. But when you get something that shows up, you make it with a magnet, you put it on your kitchen or your fridge, and it stays there. And when you're hungry, you look at it, yeah, let's call XYZ kind of thing, because it's right there. So they were able to grow it by 67%. And then the next thing, when they were talking to the vendor that they were working with, was, how can you be a little bit more strategic about that? How can we really identify who are the hand raisers, who are the people that we want to communicate with, and to really do the best job possible with them? So what they did was to really look at the 3 periods, before the direct mail piece arrived, when the direct mail piece arrived, and afterwards. And they targeted display ads, social media ads, to those exact people, to warm them up before it came, then when it came, to really have a big crescendo, and then afterwards to say, hey, you've gotten our catalog of who all the people you can order food from in your neighborhood. Have you ordered from them yet? Here's an extra 10% off after the fact. And by really having digital support that direct mail hero piece, they were able to generate an additional 35% growth. So by adding in direct mail and then doing it more sophisticated, they were able to double their rate of growth of new revenue. And not only grow faster, but they also cut their cost per acquisition by 30%. So win-win. If you combine the chocolate and the peanut butter, you get more than either one individually.
This is a great example. I know people think direct mail is expensive, but has anybody seen the cost per acquisition for Google Ads recently? That's so competitive. So when you start seeing these kind of numbers, it makes it very exciting to try direct mail out. Let's see. All right, so our next example is Third Love. Those of you who don't know who Third Love is, they are an online retailer. They sell intimate apparel. And they recently launched a direct mail campaign to folks who had unsubscribed to their email list. So their theory was that people who unsubscribed still wanted to receive offers and promotions. They just were sick of looking at emails. And their theory was right. They told us their direct mail campaign results in the highest response, and a much higher response rate than their email. So we all know it's getting harder and harder to do email marketing because of all of the data privacy and the regulations that are coming down. So the idea to steal from here is using direct mail is a great way to keep unemailable leads from going stagnant. All right, and then let's end with a bang. And this last example is from ThredUp. So ThredUp sells secondhand clothing online, and they wanted to encourage repeat purchases from past buyers. So they researched customer style choices based on previous purchases, and then they sent customers mail pieces that featured images with styles that aligned with what they'd bought in the past. This obviously is somebody who really likes the color yellow, and they were smart enough to pick a yellow garment and even update the artwork and the postcard to be yellow. So, and this approach worked. ThredUp really nailed it. They increased repeat purchases by 20%. And the idea here to steal is that it's absolutely worth it to take the time to understand your customers deeply before you send that first direct mail piece. All right, so that is it for me and Ray. Thank you for joining us for this part one of our Modern Marketers Best Practice series. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be hosting 2 more sessions on personalization and real-time analytics. If those are 2 challenges that you are having, we would highly encourage you to join us. The dates are May 11th and May 25th. Once again, you can register at lob.com/events. And that's it. And we look forward to seeing you at our next 2 events.